Well, hello, everybody. This is Mike DeBoer with the Franchise Business Podcast, and I'm honored to be joined by Gilbert Saguid. Gilbert is somebody that I've had the privilege of meeting at a couple of franchising events. Gilbert is runs franchise or Veterans Franchise Group. So, Gilbert, I'll kind of let you introduce yourself. A little bit about what your firm does for aspiring entrepreneurs and how you got into this profession.
Yes, thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
So I live in San Diego. I work nationwide. I am a franchise broker, so I help veterans and their military families learn about franchising and essentially do the matchmaking services for them to find the right business. A little bit about my background. I'm a Navy veteran, served 11 years, and worked in corporate America. I'm a little bit of an academic. I got a PhD in leadership studies where I studied veteran entrepreneurship. And on top of that, we also own two small, dessert franchise businesses here in San Diego as well.
Awesome, Gilbert. Well, thank you for your service, and I think it's a pretty special thing that you're able to do to help veterans, find that next thing in their life. And kind of on that note, what is your process like? Because I'm sure you're dealing with people that come from the military service, but probably have a lot of different goals and skill sets and kind of dreams for what they want to do next. So what is your process, Gilbert? Just kind of learning about them, what they want to do, what they can bring to the table, and whatever business they get into.
So I do have a 4-step process, and I would say it's very holistic. I don't just look at somebody's budget, where they live, and maybe what kind of consumer they are, such as if they love sandwiches, maybe they should do a Subway sandwich. I definitely take it to a deeper level. And a lot of that comes from my coaching background, my academic background, and also my entrepreneurship startup background. So the 4-step process is essentially first meeting, get to know you, get to know your family, get to understand your goals, your pain points, really get into that deep level of why is it that you want to start a business. And then we'll have a conversation about budgets and financial qualifications and likes and dislikes. Second step, I would have you take an assessment, get even deeper, talk about your values, your risk tolerance, some of your passions, some of your desires and likes when it comes to a culture and of an organization, which is really important when you're looking into getting with a franchise. Then on the third call, what I do is I look at the territory. We do an analysis on the demographics of the area, look at the trends based on the census data and some other marketing data. And then we get into the industries and get to know, what is a day in the life of a landscaping company or a restaurant, and get an understanding of what you want to be doing in the business and what you don't want to be doing in the business. And then by that time, I'm going to spend about a week or two doing my due diligence, doing research, really, raising up any red flags about the brands and creating a presentation for my clients of 4 to 5 different brands that I think are going to be a good fit. And I take a very unbiased approach to this. If we all know about franchise brokering, it's, there is no cost to my clients, the people that I work with to help them find a brand. So I can be very unbiased with the 750 brands that I do work with. Sure. And it's a matter of just knowing the pros and cons of the different brands to see if it's a good fit.
Right. Awesome. And I think, Gilbert, that's one of the really important things that you bring to the table, because there are thousands and thousands of franchise models out there. And I don't think anyone can really do kind of their due diligence and research if they're doing this on their own. So, I think you've just talked about how important is that you, through your relationships you build with all these franchisors and the knowledge you've been able to build on them, you can bring that knowledge to the table, and your clients know, I'm getting an unbiased look at what these models bring to the table, and then what my life would look like if I was a franchisee with them.
It's very true. I mean, it's all about education. And, most of the clients most of the people that come up to me, my candidates, they want to do their own diligence, which is fine. But just be aware that what's out there on the website, on the internet, what's out there on YouTube videos and things like that may not be, may be biased in regards to, maybe that's marketing material, maybe that's sales material to attract you to come to talk to the different brands. Right. But you really want to peel the layers of the onion to see if it's going to be the right brand for you.
Right. Absolutely. Now, Gilbert, I'm sure you've had some people with challenging circumstances as they've gone through this discovery process. I don't think anyone in this business has not had people that have had challenging circumstances. Do you have any kind of stories you're willing to share about someone that again had some difficulty or had some challenges, but you helped them get through those challenges? They joined a great model and they've been successful in that model ever since.
Yeah, so a big thing, especially in academia and a lot of the entrepreneurship education programs that are out there, whether they be with the nonprofits or with the government supported programs, the latest crave is ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition. So I do talk to a fairly amount, large amount of people, especially on the veteran network, that are super stoked about this, right? Why not, especially with the silver tsunami of the baby boomers retiring and this idea that a lot of them are just sticking around with their businesses, but they don't have an exit strategy. So everybody's looking for that unicorn business where somebody's going to give them 95% seller financing. You have a cash flowing, business, and you can do this very semi-passive, if not passive, right? That's the unicorn there.
Sure.
In reality, they're just hard to find, right? Those are essentially unicorns. And so I've been getting a lot of clients, specifically when I was working with somebody in Florida that they went through all that education, they knew how to do the analysis, but when it came down to it, just wasn't enough inventory out there. Considering there's a lot of private equity and other organizations that are really finding these businesses. And so went through the whole process with this specific client in Florida. He got attracted to the resale and just wanted to do resale only, which obviously in the franchise space, it's a timing thing, whether somebody's going to sell or not.
Right.
And, just kept in contact. That's what my approach is, just education. I'm not going to hound you or try to sell you or try to hard close you, but I will keep in contact just to see how things are. And then 2 years later, that specific client came back to me and said, basically shared with what exactly I shared with you, the fact that there wasn't that inventory. If I really, the opportunity cost was the time that in the last 2 years, I could have actually started a business and been a business owner and been profitable if not. So they went down the road, and luckily, because it was 2 years ago and we already went through a long process, we kind of re-engaged, and he quickly found an opportunity and bought a gym. So it was really exciting to see.
Awesome. Well, it's very cool. And I mean, everyone has things that come up in different timelines, but that I think shows the fact that you worked with them as, their process kind of changed and they're ready to make a decision. So I think that that's important for people to know. Now, Gilbert, you're dealing with, I think, people that are maybe different than when you think of in the franchise world, aspiring entrepreneurs, a lot of people that were in corporate America and wanted to leave. You're dealing again with veterans. What kind of unique skill sets and perspectives do veterans bring into franchise models that make them a really great asset as franchisees?
There's a lot of great assets and experience that military veterans bring into the franchise space and the business ownership space. A lot of people say that, oh yes, we can take orders, right? But it's definitely a lot more than that, right?
Yeah.
There are standard operating procedures in the military, but we're trained, especially as military leaders, is to be smart about it, to evaluate it, see what needs to be corrected or improved on that, but also taking processes to do that, right? To make any corrections. And so I like to look beyond that, and I look at the franchise space, and I look at what successful franchise owners and unsuccessful. I look at those that, hey, maybe be capped because they went into the franchise space to get some time freedom and be a business owner, but essentially they end up just being the mom and pa in the van in a franchise space. So what I would say is, based on my experience and with people I worked with that became franchise business owners and just knowing other veterans, is what we bring is leadership. And what I mean by leadership is the act and the exercise of knowing how to be a good follower and also a good leader, right? Knowing and being comfortable, because even corporals that are 20 years old in the Marines are already leading people, and in a way of not just giving orders, but understanding their Marines, getting to know them at a personal level, understanding their dreams and their goals. And that translates so well in the business space, because they're not going to be that person that's just sitting in a van really capping out their business. They're going to be comfortable with hiring, with training, with really promoting and empowering their employees. And I would say that is the biggest asset that us as military leaders, whether you'd be a young 20-year-old veteran, 22-year-old veteran, or my 50-year-old colonels that have been in the military for the last 30 years. That
Right.
all that does apply.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we have some great franchisees that are veterans and people at corporate as well. And I think that's a lot of the stuff you said, right? Adaptability and really good at fine tuning processes. So how do we get to A and from point A to point B in as efficient a way as possible? Leadership, it's all those things are. I think any model wants those things in franchisees because that allows people to be successful and scale in a really effective way as well. So great points. Now, Gilbert, you shared kind of a story of a challenging circumstance with a client. Any success stories, kind of aside from that you'd want to share? Clients you've worked with that found a great model and they've been very successful in that business since you placed them there?
Yes, I actually, this is a great story because I just reconnected with my old candidate. He bought a business about a year and a half ago. I met him at a networking event. He didn't even know I was in franchising. He wasn't either. It wasn't too much of a franchising space networking event.
Sure.
But I just had a beer with the person and just got to get to know what he was up to. Found out he was just recently laid off, even though he was a senior executive. And from that conversation, just opening up, providing my business card, we went down the road of just looking at different franchises. And what was really exciting is that we were able to find a brand that was in line with his goals, also with his industry profession, being in the medical industry. And so he eventually bought a mobility service company and had dinner with him, went to Morton's, had a nice steak, had no idea where his progress was, and found out that he was really, even after 2 years, he was just killing it out of the water. Super successful, one of the top franchisees in their model. And I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised because, his military experience, but also his corporate leadership experience. The person, my candidate was just a business builder in the sense of helping other businesses be successful. But now he was able to do that with himself. And it was really exciting to see his success.
Awesome. I'm sure that's very rewarding for you to, help people like him get to that stage where, they found the right fit and they've been successful. I'm sure that's what drives you in your business day to day.
Oh, 100%. Especially, the certain demographic of senior executives, senior, directors that maybe the options and opportunities aren't as abundant as opposed to maybe like a 25-year-old MBA grad that's out there, right? And so allowing, helping somebody to be able to find their next mission in life, their excitement and passion and what they're doing is always so rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a very cool story. Now, Gilbert, I'm sure you run into a lot of misconceptions that people have, maybe just about entrepreneurship in general, maybe more specifically about franchising. Any kind of common misconceptions about this world that you've run into, and if so, how have you helped people kind of overcome that way of thinking and approach the process with more clarity?
A couple things, and the first thing is alternative funding. In the world of being able to fund a business from scratch, bootstrapping your business, but also with crowdsourcing, right? Crowdsourcing is such a popular thing, and people talk a lot about that of how you can crowdsource, find alternative funding for your businesses. I do have to educate a lot of my clients that, hey, that's great if you can do that. But in the franchise space, considering we're so regulated by the FTC, and the fact that most businesses are going to be covered by an SBA loan, that may not be an option unless the franchisor is specifically open to that, which would be probably less than 5 that I've seen, less than a handful.
Sure.
And then another thing, and I know I have my own personal experiences, is the world of semi-passive, right? Yeah. Everybody wants that business where they can just put a manager and just be hands off, maybe work your own job. I'm always very conservative about that when I talk to my clients. Me owning a semi-passive business where there's times where, hey, my manager might be out or somebody might be out and I'm making donuts, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a world that, you really got to just roll up your sleeves and get to the point where you get that business up and running, but there's always going to be some challenges, and, creating the contingencies is the joy of being a business owner. Yeah. But I'm always so cautious with people, especially if they're making multiple transitions. For example, People coming out of the military. Not only are they moving to a new city, then second, they're moving into a second job, and then third, they're looking at the idea of starting a business. I think that's just a terrible idea, right? Because there's just too many transitions. Let's get some get some stability first, and then see if that new job would allow the freedom and flexibility to be able to step in if your manager's gone.
Right. No, I think that's, and obviously semi-passive is kind of the buzzword of our time right now, but I think that's so true. People can only do so much at any given time, and I think a lot of people don't really have the flexibility to do something on the side in terms of building a business. So I think being conservative, it can work for some people, but other people maybe it's not the most realistic option, like you said.
Yeah. One thing to remember is not only the time, energy, and flexibility, but it's also the mental energy and time, right?
Exactly.
Because the last thing you want to be is in your corporate job, 2 in the afternoon, and you're just fully involved in what you're doing. Then all of a sudden you get this emergency call, and that's just it could be pretty tiring.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely, Gilbert. Well, those are sort of the questions that I wanted to ask. I guess one last thing from my end, any trends that you're seeing, either, things that your clients are looking for, or just in the, the franchise world that you're evaluating day to day that you think people should know about if they're going to kind of dip their toes into the franchising space?
Yes, and it's and in no relation to Schooley Mitchell, obviously, but there's a little bit of a connection there.
Sure.
The what I've seen that's been very popular is the more of the solopreneur B2B type of business model, where you definitely, if you are going to have any labor, it's going to definitely be on the smaller end of things,
right.
With other franchisees that are successful that really are just running it with a small team or just themselves.
Right.
I've seen that being very popular because of the idea of hey, there's a lot of people that, hey, maybe they've been in charge of a lot of people and they just want to take a step back and just focus on family and have a lot more flexibility. And so those type of business to business, more of a consultative type of approach has been a lot more popular now.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it's for the right person being able to do something on their own from a home office, low overhead. I think that can be a great fit. Other people want to build something big, and that's also, I think the important thing is different models for different people, and that can fit every need and want that a franchisee would be looking for. So I think sometimes people just assume it's food and beverage, but there's a lot of these different models that are out there, right?
There is. Everybody just knows about Subway and all that. And I honestly, I have not helped anybody get into food, even though I do own a food franchise.
Sure. Absolutely. No, Gilbert, this is great. Now, I'd like to leave the floor open. Anything that you wanted to say that we didn't discuss yet, the floor is yours. Or just if there's someone watching maybe that's thinking, yeah, I've always thought that owning my business would be kind of an interesting idea. What would you say to them to kind of get their process started?
Yes. So the first thing I would say, speak to a broker, right? I honestly believe that what I do as a service is provides so much value because we can provide an unbiased approach to it. And just know that just by talking to a broker, there shouldn't feel any pressure or need that you have to be closed or buy anything, because we're here to help and educate. And if there's an opportunity there, we can do the matchmaking services. You should take a slow approach. You should take a methodical approach of evaluating these brands because you're going to be spending a lot of money, right? So, do your research, but also lean on to the professionals that could assist you.
Yeah, absolutely. And where can people find you, Gilbert, if they do want to get in touch with you specifically?
Yeah, you can find me on my website at veteransfranchisegroup.com, or you can personally email me at gilbert@veteransfranchisegroup.com.
Awesome. And I can attest, if you work with Gilbert, you're in great hands. He's a wealth of knowledge. And like he said, provides a really unbiased look at all models, and also, whether it's the right fit for someone to get into business for themselves at the point that they're at. So Gilbert, really appreciate you joining. Thanks for your insights. I think there's a lot to take from this. So thanks for doing this.
I appreciate you, Mike. Thank you.
You got it.